initially we took one of those big blocks of clay, and remember we sliced it in half widthwise. So you guys still have this hunk of clay. This is what we're going to use today. So go ahead and get this out. So get your canvas spread out, and I have to pull the plastic bag off this a little bit. You're also still going to need that scrap bag of clay, so kind of keep that handy for a little bit later. You're also going to have some scrap from here, so that'll be fine. I just keep throwing stuff on the floor, which I know I'm going to regret later because I cannot stay with my headphones on and reach the floor at the same time. So go ahead and get this out. You need your rolling pin. Okay, so we're going to roll this thinner. Again, we want like a 1/4 inch thick-ish is our overall goal. And when we roll this, I want us to just keep rolling in one direction. So it's going to get a little wider, but we want to make it long. So when I roll this, I'm rolling, out and back. Do not roll over the edges because you want the edges to be still usable. Then I'm going to flip it and still roll in the same direction. So I'm not going out in a different direction. So this is going to take a little while. I'm going to flip and roll. So I'm at probably like a 1/2 inch right now. I'm going to keep flipping over. You flip it over because it starts to kind of stick on your canvas. My canvas is a little bit bigger than yours, so you might need to turn your canvas the other direction because it's a little bit longer than it is wide. And I need to also be careful because my right hand is much stronger than my left hand, so the right side of my slab is getting a little thinner. Okay. Ordinarily, when we use rolling pins, we would have had those little wooden braces, but there's just no feasible way for me to send those to you guys. So you're just going to have to watch the thickness. Okay, it's down to about a 1/4 inch. If you want to grab your ruler, you can double check that. It's close enough. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to get to this point. Okay, and you can see like my edges are not perfectly even. Like that edge is pretty straight, but this edge, not so much. And that's okay. I'm just going to rotate mine for the camera angle because I think it's just better for you guys if you see it the other way. So. I'm sure that if somebody like took a little vacuum and vacuumed up my laptop, they would find a lot of clay dust in my laptop because every year I've got at least one section of this every semester, and I always have to take attendance and type, and I'm trying to type with my fingernails, and I can't quite keep the clay out. Yeah.
Floats around in the air.
Exactly. Dog hair floats everywhere. Like I always say, I always have dog hair inside every mask I have, even if I've not worn it at home, even if I've just freshly washed it, taken it. Every day when I come home, my dog sticks her head in my bag. I think she just deposits it there for later. Okay, if you need more time for rolling, raise your hand. Okay, then I'm gonna guess we're all good. Okay, so honestly, everybody's piece is gonna be a little bit different size. But we are going with approximately 12 inches side to side and 6 inches this way, okay? So I'm gonna take my ruler and see if I've got about that. I think I do. So I'm just gonna mark, I'm not digging in yet, okay? So I'm just gonna mark with something. I don't know, this gigantic stick I picked up. I'm gonna mark it here. Okay, and just kind of mark a straight edge. I'm not cutting all the way through, I'm just kind of skimming here. I want to make sure I have a straight edge on the bottom. So I'm going to skim along here. And then I'm going to measure, because the top edge of mine is more wonky, I'm going to see if I can get 6 inches. Ooh, I just made it. 6 inches up here. If yours is a little shorter, that's fine. I'm going to measure 6 inches. This is just approximate, okay? So like I said, everybody's going to be a little bit different. I wouldn't go bigger than 6 inches or 12 inches. Go. You might want to, Roberta, you might want to turn your thing because you want to only roll one direction. So just turn your canvas and roll, you know what I mean? There you go. And then keep flipping it over. Yeah, but always go, like, keep going along.
Does it have to be the same way?
No, I mean, if it's a little bit shorter than 12, that's fine. If it's a little bit shorter than 6, that's fine. But that's kind of, we're shooting for 6 by 12. Really, like, no bigger than that right now. It's just I found that a pretty manageable size. Okay. Oh, I forgot to show you. I keep forgetting to show you these. So we actually have made these before. We made them for the first time last year. So I just want to prove to you that they can be made. All right. But since we watched the video, you guys know that they are an actual thing. So once you get your measurements, you can go ahead and if you want to use a ruler to help you cut, you can. But you want to cut out that rectangle. Keep your little scraps off to the side. So Roberta, you want to keep going until you're about 1/4 of an inch thick, okay? Okay, and I'm going to take my scraps, I'm going to open up my scrap bag just so they don't dry out. I'm just going to throw them in here or cover them up with plastic, my scraps that I just cut away. Okay, just leave them off to the side. Don't mush them up, just leave them. Mushing them up is just going to mean you're going to have to knead some more or do some wedging. Okay. All right, are we good at home with this? Raise your hand if you need more time for the cutting. Okay, no problem. So Roberta, try not to go over the edge, like go up to the edge and then keep flipping it. Our goal is to get Let me see what. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to talk about, I hope that you guys found some things possibly to roll into the surface here. I'll show you, see, I wish that we, of course, we all wish we could all be at school. That would be great. So I have a whole bunch of like old rubber stamps and some other texture things that people could use. But if you found something, like this, like netting or something, that'll work. In fact, I think I'm going to use the netting just so I'll be more like what you guys have at home. But what we want to do is kind of figure probably about an inch or so at the top where we're not going to have any texture, because you might decide to use this as a cup. So you don't want any texture up on that rim because you want to be able to get anything that's going to touch food should be a smooth surface, or touch your lips. It should be a smooth surface so that bacteria doesn't get in there. So we're going to end up smoothing out the insides, and we're going to end up having that rim be undecorated. Okay. Roberta, go ahead and take your ruler out and see if you've got like 12 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of open up the mesh here. This is from, I don't know, some fruit or something that I had. I'm just going to stretch it so it stays a little bit more open. And I'm not worried about it being like super like regular or even, I guess. So I'm going to leave that top edge uncovered, and I'm just going to push this down here, and I'm just going to lightly roll my rolling pin over so that this mesh gets a little bit embedded. Some of you might have something that works more like a stamp that you want to gently press on there. So we're not really trying to press too hard because we don't want to flatten this much more. But I am going to embed this in here. And then when I pull it out, the design will be left in the clay. Okay. So you might have, something that is more like a stamp, like I mentioned some people might have like stamps from like, stamp designs. Lots of people were into rubber stamping. If you have rubber stamps or something else, I might just also, I got this button here. Maybe make a couple little stamps with the button. 6 and then 12. As close as you can get to that. I'm just going to stamp in a couple places. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to get that. The thickness of the slab, about 1/4 of an inch. If it's like if your fingers are like that far apart. It doesn't have to be exact. Were you able to cut a slab that's 12 by 6-ish? Okay, then it's probably close enough to the thickness. Because we're all dealing with, kind of very similar sized chunks of clay, and that's kind of, in my mind, how I kind of worked this out. If we're all working with about the same stuff, we'll all get about the same results. So So some of you might have to move your stamp thing around a little bit. Just, you know, it's just nice to have some texture. If you don't have anything to stamp in, that's okay too. You can just leave it plain. Okay, I don't want to go too fast. How we doing? Megan, are you done? Are you still stamping?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, and just checking. So a lot of the lower portion of this is going to be used to make these three little feet here. So, you know, the whole design is going to kind of be pulled in toward the end there. So don't worry if, you know, your edges are kind of irregular. Yeah, if you just cover it up with anything, Roberta, it's fine. Just so it doesn't dry out while it sits there. Okay, if you need more time at home for stamping the surface, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, so this part is going to be important that you look at the screen. So I'm going to make sure everybody can look up. What we need to do to put these sides together, we don't want to do a butt joint where they're like hitting right on top of each other. We want to do a bevel joint so they overlap. Okay, so what you're going to be doing, if you look at this, this is the edge of my slab. Okay, so this is the length of my slab. I want to cut like at a 45-degree angle over here. Okay, so I'm cutting with my knife, you know, at an angle. So I'm going to hold my knife at an angle. I know it's really hard, like an angle like that, a 45-degree angle as I cut over here. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, but I'm cutting underneath. So that over on this edge, I get a bevel going this way, and on this edge, I get a bevel going the opposite way. So when I put them together, they overlap, they link together, and I don't have doubled up clay, I have beveled clay. All right, so just watch me do this. I think maybe if you watch me do this, you can visualize this better, okay? So I'm gonna be holding my knife at an angle like this, okay, over here. And I'm gonna keep that angle steady. And I know it's hard for you guys to see, but keep that angle steady. And I'm slicing over here. So you see how that edge is angled now? I know it's harder for you guys to see, but maybe people at home can see better. Okay, this is angled. It looks like this, okay? On this side, I'm still holding my knife in the same direction, but my knife end, okay, is going into here. So the top is going to be the wide part and the underneath is where I'm slicing. So I'm keeping a 45-degree angle and I'm slicing along here. And if you don't get this perfect, it's no big deal, okay? But you guys see how this end is angled and this end is angled, but they're angled in opposite directions, or, you know. So go ahead and do that. You want to do 45-degree angle slices, beveled slices on each edge. Robert, if you want to come up and grab something to put into your clay, you can do that. And then hang on to these little pieces still. Okay, don't worry about getting it perfect because it's going to all get adjusted. So there's like, you can use those for like stamping and kind of push them in or lay them down and roll your rolling pin over. There's some bigger, some plastic ones too. See, our teachers never throw anything away.
I've never seen.
Well, they were from a project years ago, and I thought the designs were cool, so I kept them. Because people didn't want to take them home. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll keep them. Okay. So you might have to like put that down and then move it, do it twice. But leave the top edge clear. They're actually a good size for this. They like line up perfectly. Okay, how we doing on the bevel? Mitchell, are you good on your bevel? You need more time, right? Or you have a question?
No. I was wondering, do we bevel the bottom?
No, just the two sides. Just the two sides. So along the 6-inch sides. Good question, though. Megan, you beveled?
Yeah.
All right.
I just don't think I did the one side.
That's all right. It's the nice thing is it's clay and it's still mushable. It's not like it's wood and we've cut it and we've like ruined a piece of wood, It's mush. I should use the correct word. It's still plastic, meaning it can still be moved and shaped. If I use my art terms here. Okay. We ready for the next step? Anybody need more time? Raise your hand if you need more time. Okay. All right. So watch me for a second. This is the rim. So this is going to be the rim. I'm going to just kind of run my finger over this a little bit now just to kind of knock off that straight edge, but you'll be able to do that later on too. Okay. But when I do that, it kind of compresses it a little bit. I am going to lift this up on the rim. So it's going to sit on the rim and I'm going to shape it into a cylinder. And I need to score and then slip so that I'm putting those two 45-degree angles together. Okay. So while I've got this up and it should be, it's going to be a little bit floppy, but it should hold its weight. If it doesn't, you can lay this down and do this, but I'm going to score my edges here. I'm going to score this edge and I only need to use slip on one side. So I'm going to use some slip in here, make sure my edges still stay, roughed up. And I'm going to put these two beveled edges together. And it just makes a little bit neater cylinder because you don't have a double thickness of clay here. Now, I will tell you, when I was looking for videos on this tripod vessel, it was there was a little bit more exciting lady to watch, but she did not do the beveling, and I like the beveling, okay? So I'm putting those two bevel edges together, and then I am gonna smooth the seams. So you must support the other side when you smooth the seams. I can take my hand or a tool. I'm putting my hand on the outside and I'm reaching into the inside. Trying not to push down. Okay, so watch where your hands are. Put my tool in here so I can smooth out that seam on the inside. Well, if it's okay if it's thick, you'll be fine. I also want to smooth the seam on the outside, which is going to disturb my design a little bit, but that's okay. There's just going to be a little stripe here where I'm smoothing this across. Maybe I'll use my little stamper tool and stamp a design in there or something. So you have to kind of support the weight of the clay a little bit with your hand. Try to get that seam on the inside and the outside smoothed up. I'm going to flip mine over to the bottom so I can kind of get the, it was hard for me to reach this spot when it was the other direction. I'm going to smooth over here on the inside. Always support on the opposite side. When you're putting pressure on one side, always support the opposite side. So I'll be able to clean this up as we go, but I'm going to turn it back on the rim again and leave the end up. And I'm going to go check Megan's thing and see what she's talking about. Be right back. Okay, good. We still have 30 minutes left. So I think we will have plenty of time to get this done. Okay. So we want to make sure you get that seam together. Gonna test things out here, see if something will work. Okay. So raise your hand if you need more time to smooth this seam together. Okay, so that tells me we are good to go. So now I'm just going to talk about this for a second. So as you saw in the video, like you can put your fingers in an isosceles triangle, and that's what we're going to do with our base here. So I've got my seam close to me. To prep all of this, though, first, all around this rim and kind of like toward the inside of the rim, I'm going to score. So this is the bottom side. This is actually the underside, the bottom. It's actually sitting on the rim of the vessel, but all along here, I'm going to score, okay, and apply some slip all along in here. So it's kind of a little bit on the outside of it, kind of a little bit on the inside of it. give you a second to score and slip. And it's okay, you know, if it sits there for a little bit, it'll kind of get a little gunky, which is good. So Roberta, you can flip that if you need to get in there and then flip it back. Okay, so everybody look at the screen for a second. So this is my seam. My seam is going to be like where my thumbs are of this triangle, okay? Because I don't want to push that in. What I want to do is I'm going to start to flatten with the length of my fingers and my two thumbs together, kind of flatten this into a triangle slowly. And I'm slowly going to be bringing the seams together. Okay, so I'm doing this kind of quickly. So I've got one foot is directly across from that seam that I made, and the other feet are off to the side. I'm going to start pushing that together, giving it a little pinch so that they stay together. And there's going to end up being a little hole here, which we'll talk about in a minute. So you can pinch these together and then use your finger or a tool to kind of clean them up and seam those seams together. So the feet are going to end up kind of in, you know, like a triangular orientation here. My actual design is causing a lot of splitting on my legs, so I'm going to go ahead and smooth out the surface there too, just to, I've got some splitting because of my decoration, so that's like probably an individual thing, might not be happening with you. If your clay is a little drier, it might also be, you know, cracking as we pinch those together. So I went kind of fast. If you go a little bit slower, it'll kind of ease the clay into place. And you can rotate this, but, you know, hold it on the side and kind of pick it up and turn it. When you do it, be real gentle with this. Have any of you ever driven north on Ridge Road from Minooka? Like heading toward 52? Okay. So like on the west side of the road, there's like a farm and there's like an old corn crib and it's shaped like an oval. It's white and it's got like a little cupola on the top. They also have like a pond next to it too. So it's like a little hill with this corn crib on it, and then there's a house, and then there's a pond, like as you're heading north. Anyway, that's my favorite little farm building because I feel like it's like a perfect little oval, like somebody just set it there. Like it's like the shape of your hands when you go like this, like somebody just set it there. So every time I like move my clay, I'm thinking like, just pick it up and set it there. Okay. Raise your hand if you need more time to kind of smooth up the legs. Don't worry about the hole in the center. Raise your hand if you need more time to smooth up your legs or pinch your legs together. Or feet, whatever we're going to call them. Feet, legs, whatever. Okay. All right. So you guys have this extra clay. All right. So you're going to take a hunk of it and I would kind of wedge it up in your hands a little bit and make a ball. This is a pretty big one. But what you're going to do, I'm going to pinch away part of this. Make a little ball and you're going to flatten it out. So I'm going to make it a little circle and I'm going to flatten it. to about, again, like about a 1/4 inch. And this is going to end up going on this spot. Okay, so I could make it a little thinner if I want. I could put my little stampy thing on it if I want. But I need to score the back of this. I need to score this little base here where I'm going to put this. I don't know, maybe I want to make mine. I generally have just used a little circle to do this. I'm going to score, you want to put some slip in here on that surface, put some slip on the back. And then this is going to be pushed on there, kind of pushed into that whole area. Be careful you don't push so much that you're going to collapse your piece here. But we're just kind of putting that into that area. And I'm just going to, because mine is kind of thick, I'm going to smooth mine out into the legs a little bit too. I made mine so thick, I'm kind of afraid it's going to be raised up higher than the legs. So I'm kind of smoothing it in a little bit more to the legs. Lower that down a little bit. Okay. For sure, what you're trying to do is cover that hole in between those 3 triangular feet that are coming out. Okay, and like I said, when you're applying pressure, be wary, do not apply so much pressure that you're going to collapse your sculpture here. Actually, I think mine's not going to be, you know, other ones were like cute little buttons. I think I made mine too big. So I'm just going to end up blending mine directly into the legs here. Sometimes you got to think on the fly, change things up. But the most important part is that that hole is sealed up from the outside here. Okay, and when I've got that bottom hole sealed up, I'm going to flip this back over. I'm going to kind of tap it down a little bit, which is going to let those feet flatten out a little bit. And now I'm going to be working from the top. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a minute to get to this point. Okay, raise your hand if you need more time with the feet. All right, and I am moving on because I can help these people here if they need to catch up. Okay, so I moved my light. I'm hoping you guys can see what's going on in here. I'm going to use my gigantic spear here to point out. So you can see that there are seams inside. Ideally, when you're going to use something, you don't want divots and seams. So we are going to take some of that extra clay, you roll it into like a little coil. You can reach down in there. I'm even going to use this little skewer here. I'm going to just scrape up some of this surface in here. I'm going to put a little slip in there. Okay. You want to watch the rim, okay, but you are going to be able to fix the rim. So I want to just kind of take these coils and stick them down into those little divots for the feet. So I'm going to push the clay down in there, push that coil on some of those seams, push it into those little holes. So I'm just kind of poking it in there and take a little bit more. And actually kind of push the tip into that hole in there. I'm using a wooden tool, just kind of push it down right now. And then I'm going to take a wooden tool or my finger and I'm going to start trying to smooth this out. If I need to add some more clay, I can do that, but I want to try to smooth this out and get the inside relatively smooth and rounded. I do not like that tool, so I'm going to switch to a different tool. I'm going to switch to my finger in a minute. So I'm kind of banging the rim up a little bit. That's what I mean. Like, don't worry about the rim just yet. You want to worry about getting this inside kind of sealed up and smoothed out a bit. I'm going to use a little bit more clay in a couple places. Always good to do a little bit more scoring. So these wooden skewers are kind of nice to reach down deeper. Just kind of scratch around. Might be easier than trying to get the comb down in that spot. Push in, fill some of those dents. And another one here I'm going to add a little bit more to. Ideally, you know, we want a smoother inside, okay? So I find that ultimately my finger is the best smoothing tool, but even the bottom, the handle of your fettling knife actually has a nice kind of smooth curved edge. So you can take the handle of your fettling knife and use that. That'll make a nice extension for your finger. Always support on the other sides when you are pushing in one direction, support on the other direction. And like I said, ultimately I will go in with my hand and smooth out. Okay, I'm going to give you guys some time to get that done. Okay, you can see like one of my examples, this example just goes straight up, you know, from the sides, just goes straight up like a cylinder. And this other example I have has a little bit of a pot belly. Okay, so I'm going to show you, if you're interested in this pot belly idea, what you can do. All right. Once you have the inside smoothed out a little bit, you put one hand on the outside and your fingers on the inside, and you just slowly kind of like ease your fingers up as you're pushing out a little bit against your hand. So I've just done 2 little pushes and already this side is kind of pushed out. And then you rotate and push a little bit. This hand is kind of cupped, so it's allowing the clay, and I'm only going up to like where my design is on the inside, or like my design is on the outside. So I'm only not going all the way up to the rim. And this is optional. You don't have to do this. But while the clay is plastic, you can do that. So you see that mine kind of pushes out now a little bit. Got a little bit of a curve out. Go back into a couple little places and do it a little bit more. And again, my outside hand is just kind of resting on the area where the design is, and I'm only going about that far with my pressure on the inside. I'm also taking my hands around the outside, and this is called collaring, when you just kind of like squeeze just a little bit, squeeze in, it'll compress the clay, and that will give me a little bit of an indentation. So I've pushed out and I've indented here. So if you push the inside out a little bit and you collar, you're going to start to get a slightly different profile on your vessel here. Also, when you push it out a little bit, you can maybe reach back in there again, do some more smoothing that you couldn't reach before. I'm seeing a couple spots I want to smooth out. Okay, now I want to talk about the rim a little bit. So I want you to look up at the meat for a second. Show you a couple of these. So this person, last year we put some handles on things. This person put a handle on, but I want you to imagine drinking out of this particular mug, okay? This person left the rim of their mug, they blended it out a little bit, but it's still pretty, what I would call slicey, to use a technical term, okay? Still pretty, got a flat edge here, where this one is a little bit more rolled. This one is also a little bit curved out. So honestly, you can finish the rim any way you want, but it depends on what you want to use it for. If I wanted to use this, now realize that these are going to shrink as they dry. They'll also shrink when they're fired. But depending on what you want to use it for, you might want to round up the rim a little bit. You could carve the rim. You could crimp the rim. You just don't want it to be too thin so it dries out too much. But you do want to address the rim a little bit. So that means you can curve it a little bit. I think the woman in the video you guys watched likes her rims to kind of curve out a little bit. So she did that by just kind of rolling, pushing over her finger as she went around. So it's kind of like collaring in a way, but you're pushing over, you're just stretching over your finger a little bit. So I'm doing that right now to kind of show you to get that little curve out. So again, I just have a little curve out on the rim, but I am going to go back in and kind of smooth this edge a little bit more. You're going to take 3 photos of this. So you're going to take, the 45-degree down angle, that it's going to look like this. And then you're going to do one side and then rotate it and show me the other side and turn those in. Okay. So you're going to take photos before you wrap this up. But when you wrap it up, you're going to take one of your plastic bags, and we need some support on the inside, okay? Just for a little bit. So you can take a plastic bag and put it all the way in. And then take another plastic bag and open it. Carefully set this in and pull it up and make sure that the plastic is touching the side of your sculpture here. And then tuck the top inside. Okay, so take your photos first and then wrap it up, keep it wrapped up pretty tight. And I will remind you next class to take another look at it. But really that's all we're going to do on this particular one. And then we'll kind of move forward next week based off of this construction method.